the Anfield App's second look show. We're taking a second look at Liverpool's 1-0 win over Brighton. I'm Gareth Roberts, joined today by Paul Cope and Neil Jones from Goal.com to have another look at the game. Lots of talk, obviously, of it being not the best Liverpool performance in the world, of players being a little bit off it. Even the manager and the players themselves were saying that. But I wanted to sort of get into it really about, how close was it to the kind of performance we do want to see from Liverpool. Do the stats first off. These are going to flash up on your screen. So Liverpool had 70% possession, 22 shots to Brighton's 6, 8 on target to Brighton's 2 on target. They had 8 corners to Brighton's 5 and 8 fouls to Brighton's 14. 2 very strong penalty shouts as well. Shane Duffy handball from Robertson in the box first half, and then the keeper, Matt Ryan, clattering into Firmino and that apparently being sound. So, Neil, just start with you. What was your sort of overall take of the performance now you've reflected on it a little bit? And do you think it is as bad as some people seem to be saying?
No, it wasn't as bad. It wasn't a bad performance because they won. That's the whole essence of the game, is get the win. Especially given what had happened earlier in the day, where you'd seen Manchester City come unstuck against what you call a lesser side. I think Klopp said in the build-up to it, and he said it before Palace, and he said it before Brighton. He said we're ready for a really hard game, and I know, it's a bit of a cliche, and you're saying it one game at a time, but I think he genuinely does think that it's dangerous to start thinking that we're just going to roll over teams. It's great when Liverpool do, but it's dangerous to just turn up and think, well, we beat them, 5-1 and 4-0 last season against Brighton. You can't. Not many teams can do it, and Liverpool have done it well over the last sort of 2 seasons, where they have battered some certain teams quite well. But you can't bank on that. You've got to be able to win these types of games. And I think there was a stat. You were more likely to see Liverpool win 7-0 than 1-0 last season. It happened more times. So already this season they've got the 1-0 in the bank. I think they got it quite early last season as well. It was at Palace at Anfield. I think there was a lot to. I think it's almost a perfect win, because it keeps the momentum going, it keeps the forward momentum, it keeps the no goals conceded, but it also gives a couple of warnings as well, and says, there you go, look, see, you left that game in the balance towards the end. You need to do this, this and this to make sure it doesn't happen in the future.
On another day, Paul, it could easily have been a more convincing victory, couldn't it? Firmino's header first half, that's a great save from the keeper, perhaps even an underrated save in some ways, and not everyone's talking about it, but it's so close to him, and it's hard for him to almost get under it and scoop it away, and yet he does.
Yeah.
And then there's some really good defending from Brighton in there as well. Mentioned Duffy using his hand perhaps on that penalty shout, but other times there's a few last-ditch tackles from him. His defensive partner's doing some as well. And there's little moves from our front three that almost come off, but don't quite. And so, one of the day it could easily have been 3, 4 or 5, and yet, Klopp's talking about it not being great second half.
Yeah, well, it depends what you want, doesn't it? It depends on expectations. We've talked about this in the past, and I constantly say about football that it's about moments. Every big game this weekend, we were talking about it before we started recording, every big game this weekend comes down to moments, and all of those games, I'm talking about us, City, United, they all changed, completely depending on a few key moments in the match. Lukaku misses an open goal at 0-0. We have that header, for example, as you say, that's an amazing save. I think it's underrated how good a save that is. We have a couple of other really good chances. The Mane one right in front of goal from Robertson's cross, where he just sort of, I don't know what, it takes a nick on the way over to him or something like that. But same with City, hit the post, hit the bar. Could just be completely different results. And I think Liverpool fans especially, football fans generally, we don't like giving the other side credit for anything. We're always looking at what we're doing and saying, oh, well, we need to be better. Yeah. The front three aren't firing properly. I think it's worth giving them a lot of credit. And I really like Chris Hughton, and I've for a few years. He's a really good manager. He's got a really good record wherever he's been. Bear in mind, they came here last year and got battered. And his goal coming into that game is, don't get battered. Yeah. First goal is, it's been talked about on a few different shows, that at that end of the table especially, getting beat 1-0 when you got beat 4-0 last year, and one of your relegation rivals, probably West Ham, got beat 4-0. Well, getting beat 1-0 is a win. And next year he'll be coming saying, okay, if we stay in the Premier League, now we progress on the 1-0 defeat and we look at how we do that. So I think you've got to give them a lot of credit as well.
Okay, well, talking of credit, just wanted to pull out a couple of performances and a couple of points to talk about. One was Joe Gomez. Klopp said he was very good. Today was a big test. Brighton thought he could pick on Joe for the long ball, but he did really well. I don't think he made one foul, won 70 to 80% of his duels. He's a good footballer. I like him. He has a lot of nice things for a centre-back. We've got a graphic here so you can see his performance. 88.5% pass completion, created a chance, won 2 of his aerial duels in an attacking sense, 6 of 11 in a defensive sense. Interception there as well, 5 clearance that was successful, and as Klopp mentioned as well, no fouls. He's looking more and more the business, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And do you know, I remember when he first signed, and you do your, I was at the Echo at the time, you do your sort of your background research, and you get the who is Joe Gomez sort of articles. And I spoke to a couple of people from Charlton, journalists and a couple of coaches, and they said, "Oh, you can't believe how good he is." And you know, like you think, well, every signing, especially when you're writing for the Echo, every signing it's got to be almost sold as that, hasn't it? You know, you're not going to say, "Oh, they bought this lad, he's awful." Don't worry about it. You know, apart from when Bogdan signs, maybe. But Gomez was like, he's like Rio Ferdinand. He's like this. He's like that. And then he came, and I saw him in pre-season. I thought, yeah, you can see that classy sort of element to him. He's good size. You know, he's got good sort of physical attributes. And he starts playing full-back, and he was good. And he played left-back, and then he sort of come back as a right-back after the big injury. But I spoke to him in the summer. I went down to Melbourne to see him for goal, and I said to him, you know, you've played right back there, played 30 games. What do you see? And he's like, oh no. He said, and he did tell in line. I didn't know it at the time. Really, I had the scoop, but I didn't realise it. But he said, oh, the manager sees me as a centre back, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, assume that. But I didn't necessarily think that he'd start the season at centre back. I thought he'd have to wait for someone to do it. But I suppose Matip's misfortune, Lovren's stomach problem, and he's taking a chance. And I still think Lovren will come back in once he's fit. But I think it's one of them where Lovren could get away with maybe some of his Lovren moments. I think now you've got the thing of someone's breathing down your neck, and if he doesn't deliver this season or deliver in the early part of the season, Lovren, I think Joe Gomez will be back in, and I think he'll be hard to get back out once he is.
And this is the thing now, isn't it, Paul, that there is huge competition for places at Liverpool. We've got another graphic to show you there, which basically shows you a team of Liverpool players that aren't currently getting a sniff that could, you know, feasibly go out onto the field. So you got Mignolet in goal, Matip and Lovren centre half, Fabinho just in front of them, Moreno, Klein, Lallana, Henderson, Shaqiri, Sturridge, Origi. I mean, that's not a bad side, that is it? I mean, you know, it would finish top half in the league, you would probably think.
It'd win at Old Trafford.
Wouldn't it? But, you know, I think, you know, the point here for me as well is, and I wrote something on this yesterday, is that it almost means that Klopp can manage the team in a bit of a different way now, doesn't it? I mean, like Neil's saying, now all of a sudden, Dejan Lovren knows that if he does get back in, Joe Gomez is literally breathing down his neck, ready to come in, and has performed well, has proved what he can do. And it's almost the same in every position now, that there's competition for places, so you've got to stay on your toes. Wijnaldum's talked about it. You saw Milner come back absolutely flying. All of a sudden, there's a different feel about the whole club, isn't it? Yeah,
definitely. It's something I thought a while ago, actually, is that what is likely to happen from where we were to where we wanted to be. That when you've got a manager like Klopp, he's 3 years ahead of all of us as the fans, and he's got to sort of train us into thinking the way we need to think to be champions. And I remember always thinking that about Ferguson at United. When we talk about Ferguson's United teams, I think someone mentioned this on the Pink, one of those shows. You would go into. I remember even growing up watching them. You'd hear that United were drawing 0-0 at home with 5 minutes left, and my immediate thought would be, they'll win, and they would. But that wasn't what it was like when he first took over. He trained everybody to think like that by creating this team that did these things. And this is what Klopp's doing with this. And I watched the match with my father-in-law. I missed the game, I was away. And with 20 minutes left, he was panicking. And he was saying to me, they're starting to panic. And I was watching and going, they're not. You're starting to panic because you're so used to panicking in these situations. They're not panicking. And it goes into the Joe Gomez and the squad point, is that in the summer, I think I was one of them. We're probably all saying, we need another centre-back there. We need another top centre-back. But Klopp's watching everybody day to day. He's obviously had that conversation with Gomez last season where he's gone, this kid's really good. He can play centre-back for this team and he can push on. And we're seeing that straight away. We've gone from going, we need a centre-back, to probably, I think what we'd have all thought was our fourth choice centre-back going into the season. Has played 3 games, we've got 3 clean sheets. Teams have targeted him. He's been fine. And now we're saying, we're that strong in that position. We're talking about him challenging someone who played in the Champions League final and the World Cup final in the past few months.
And most people are expecting him now to get an England call-up as well and be involved there.
And rightly so, yeah. So then that team just speaks volumes, doesn't it, for what Klopp's done.
It's about your weak links, isn't it, in football? And you think back to, you've got this team here. Europa League final, 2016. Mignolet started, Moreno started, Klein started, Sturridge started, Origi come on. I think Lallana started. Henderson was unused sub. They were key players. Now they're key subs, if you like. And I think to go back to Ferguson, we don't want to talk too much about Manchester United on the show, but what did he always have at United? He always had people he could plug in games and go, you know what, Roy Keane's out for a month, but you know what, Darren Fletcher just comes in and you know, he's sound, he's fine, he can play. And Liverpool have got, you know, there's still some of them you'd maybe go, I don't want him playing for 6 months or whatever, but you'd have no problem, would you, with saying, okay, it's a, you know, a home game against, I don't know, Southampton or someone. Sturridge is having a go today, and Jordan Henderson's going to play in midfield, and Adam Lallana's going to start. I think you'd be fine with it, you know, with most of them. The weak links are getting less and less, they're getting stronger, and the weak links now are becoming people like Lovren, who's played many games. They're not the weak link, but they're becoming the ones that you might think, okay, now he might be in a bit of trouble now, or Wijnaldum might be under a bit of pressure now, or you know, even you might get to the stage where it's like, well, Andy Robertson, can you get a better, you know, that they're strong weak links, if you like. And I think the best teams have to have that. And for too long, Liverpool have had the sort of talent drain of, like, they've had them, and then they've had them, and then they've sort of just had nothing in between. And now you're sort of getting a higher level of lesser player, if you like.
Yeah, interesting stuff from the boys, and interesting stuff as ever now from Neil Atkinson with his tactics board. We know you love this bit. So here's Neil on what Liverpool were doing and what Brighton were doing and how it all worked out.
Brighton and Hove Albion came to frustrate Liverpool. It's something we're going to have to get used to. They came to stop Liverpool from playing, to stop Liverpool from ever quite getting going. And we saw it all over the pitch, really. Liverpool's second half was criticised by the manager. You might think harshly in the aftermath, but ultimately Liverpool never really looked like getting that second, though they did threaten it repeatedly during the half. And part of how they kept Brighton on the back foot was looking like a second was always possible, if not inevitable. We had another situation where Firmino ended up in his little prison that sides are creating for him. There's Basuma, there's Stevens, there's Proper, the centre-backs are here. And what they're trying to do is just try to stop Firmino from playing. What's interesting is how other players respond to this. So Salah, for instance, scores, but he also creates 6 chances throughout the course of the game, 4 of them leading to shots on target. So he's coming deeper and looking to get involved while still offering this threat around this little part of the pitch. In creating 6 chances, the next one on the line was Robertson, who created 4 chances. Then there was Trent with 2. That's the order with which Liverpool's chance creation came through the course of the game. And you see that Liverpool are getting the full-backs up. But that's a double-edged sword. Liverpool attempted 24 crosses during the game. And those 24 crosses, only 4 of them can be deemed successful. What you can see through there is there's a lot of Shane Duffy clearing the ball around this sort of area on the pitch. So it shows that Liverpool were ever so slightly beginning to play into Brighton's hands. But the thing is that Brighton could never get going on the other end of the pitch. So they won the ball back a lot. 52 times they recovered the ball over the course of the game, and only 6 of them were in Liverpool's half. To put that in context, James Milner, including for the only goal, James Milner wins it back 5 times in their half. That shows the context of what Brighton are trying to do. Firstly, it's all about stopping Liverpool. First and foremost, how do you stop the Reds? So if you stop the Reds by virtue of Mane having a bit of an off day, by virtue of creating your little prison that traps Firmino, by stopping the Reds by enforcing these lads to put the ball into the box and have your big centre-halves clear it, well, that's all well and good. But Liverpool scored, and Liverpool could still expect to score as the game wore on. What you find there then is that these sides, they come into Anfield and they do have a plan to stop Liverpool first and foremost. But the only real plan to do anything up the other end is just to hang on in there, maybe hope to change it with 10 or 15 to go and see what you can get away with. I think that's what we're going to see a lot of. Again, lots and lots of sides are going to come to Anfield and see what they can get away with. Can they still be in the game? And not all of them will be as lucky as Brighton to get Liverpool on an off day.
Big thanks to Neil. Interesting stuff as ever. One thing Neil touches on there is Mo Salah's performance. And again, like we were saying at the sort of top of the show, I almost wonder whether people are being realistic about what they're expecting from him almost, because when you start to dig down on another graphic here, against Brighton he has 6 shots, 2 on target, scores a goal. In the attacking third, 66.6% of his passes are successful. 5 of his passes led to shots on goal. 2 out of 3 of his take-ons are successful. 2 out of 4 of his aerial duels are successful. Now that sounds all right, doesn't it?
I'd be happy with that.
You'd be all right with that. Yeah. He scored the winner. He's teeing up his teammates and everything else. He put in a good performance. And yeah, I remember coming out the ground that a lot of people are sort of going, he's still not quite on it, and he's still not quite there.
I think, right, this is just, I'm going to riff on this. I think Messi and Ronaldo have changed the entire world of football in terms of how attacking players are judged. And I think Liverpool haven't yet caught on to that idea that you don't have to go everywhere and do all these things and give complete performances. What you have to do is in the final day, if you're there in the team, if your job in the team is to score goals and to win matches, you have to do that. And I think it'd be nice if you had a team of 11 players who just swapped positions and went all over, and you saw Salah at right back and left back and that. You don't need him there. What you need him to do is stay in his sort of his area, in his position, and then when the ball breaks, you look at Messi. There was people saying in the World Cup, Lionel Messi didn't run as much as anyone, and the thing was, I don't want him. I want him stood still. I want him to have absolutely maximum energy for when the ball comes to his feet, and then he can go and do whatever he does. And he had them moments in the World Cup. Obviously, Salah's the same. He's not as old as Messi. He's not as good as Messi. Sorry to break that to people. He's not as good as Messi, but he is that type of player, the Ronaldo Messi player, who his entire currency now is in the final third of the pitch. There's no point. You don't want him. I don't want to see him, if I'm a Liverpool manager, running back into his own half. If he has to do it once every so often because the situation dictates it, then fine. But I don't, as a rule, I want to see him making sure the left back doesn't go forward because he's terrified. You think back to that Roma game in the first leg of the semi-final, and people were saying, Kolarov can put balls in. It's like, sound okay, let's let him go and do that, and then watch what happens behind him. And Salah had an absolute field day. That's what you want. You want that. It completely affects the game if you've got someone like that standing still, maybe sometimes waiting for the chances. And I genuinely think, I don't think he's wasteful at all, Salah, in the sense of, I think most of the time when he gets the ball with space, something happens in the game, whether it's him getting a shot away that's blocked and then he's dragged defenders out, or whether he gets into a position where he can score. As you say, I think there's 5 passes led to shots on goal, I've just seen on the stat. Yeah. So there you go, like he's influencing the game, even if he's not necessarily, making people feel like he's doing it.
And they're all so obviously on a wavelength as well. I think you can still see that regardless of whether it's clicking, as a lot of people are saying, or not. So it's like, it's how quick they move the ball, it's how quick they move forward. It's all, lots of one-touch stuff, that back heels and things like that on another day come off and we're all pairing about it. I mean, to look at Salah across the season as well, 3 matches now, 2 goals, 1 assist, wins the penalty at Palace as well. 16 shots he's had as well across the 3 games, which is joint top in the league with Aguero. He's missed 3 big chances as well. Only Jesus and Bournemouth's Callum Wilson have missed more. But I mean, that's back to the old cliche about you've got to be in the right positions to miss them and all that kind of thing. And he's created 12 chances. So again, when you're looking at the bigger picture, he's doing all right here. He's doing all right. So why are people getting on his back about not being that good and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's a pretty standard stuff. I think it's a combination of expectation and perception. Neil makes a great point about Ronaldo and Messi changing the game. But I think the other thing that's important about Ronaldo and Messi is most of us don't watch them every week. We're not watching them for 90 minutes and analysing everything they do. What most of us are seeing is the goals on Twitter or Facebook or the highlights. And if someone shows you a clip of Messi taking 10 people on, our perception is he's always doing that. Whereas I would guess if you watch him for 90 minutes every week, there's loads of games where he's just standing around doing nothing and he's not impacting things and he's not even contributing the way Salah's contributing here. So that's one side of it, the perception of what we think. But also, Salah's raised his expectation bar so high. He's in Steven Gerrard sort of territory now, isn't he? Where I remember coming off to games and I was one of these as well, where you'd be like, Gerrard was crap then, wasn't he? And other people would be watching it going, are you joking? He was brilliant. He's the best player on the pitch. But your expectations get skewed by these sort of godlike performances that then you expect every week. And that's when things like this, it's a bit like Mane last season. I remember writing an article in the middle of the season when everyone was like, oh, Mane's off form. And I remember saying he scored more than he did last season at this stage.
Well,
and
if Sturridge delivered them stats in a game, people would be going, oh, he's back, Daniel Sturridge, isn't he?
Exactly.
You know, if you just went them raw stats, you put one of them tweets out where it's like, Daniel Sturridge's game by numbers, bang, bang, bang. People will go, he's back, Daniel Sturridge.
Yeah.
And Mo Salah's gone, apparently.
Yeah, and he definitely hasn't, has he? I mean, maybe there is more to come, and we've seen him, you know, be a huge influence on games in the past and things like that. But again, I just sort of think it's only a 1-0 win against Brighton and all that kind of thing. People keep saying that, but top of the league, 9 points, we haven't conceded a goal. The main man scoring goals, we should all be happy.
Yeah, I think everyone takes this before the season starts. And the other thing is, I'd actually take this above us starting the season flying and winning 5-0 every game, because it's the same with even Spurs and Chelsea. They'll be saying the same thing. We haven't got going yet. The players are still, Klopp said it himself, Guardiola said it, the players, this is effectively their pre-season. You can always see it in the way he's managing some of the players. Like Henderson's having his pre-season now. Firmino's having his pre-season. I mean, the other thing with Salah is you've got all this stuff going on off the pitch with the Egyptian FA. We've seen this with chats with Steve Warnock on the Pro View about how these things do affect players. They are human beings. And the big one for me is the one you said about missing the chances. It's the same as the start of last season. As long as he's getting in the positions, the other side is still, no matter what he's doing now, and this is a Messi Ronaldo point, isn't it? No matter how good he is in any particular game or for a run of games, there's no way the opposition aren't making special plans for him. And he's taken up 2, 3, 4 of their players looking at him thinking, and that's the other side as well, isn't it? That didn't happen at the start of last season because no one knew how good he was. So he's got to get used to all of that. And he's still delivering these numbers. So, I mean, overall, I don't see how we could be more pleased, because we will kick into gear. This block of 4 games, we've got an away game against Leicester with no Vardy and no Mahrez, which is huge. I would expect to see some changes for that as well. I'm a big fan of Henderson. I expect him to come back in. If we win 4 out of 4 from that block, and then we've got the international break and we get to come back and start again, that's an incredible start to the season.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, well, there's plenty more to come from Mo Salah, I would say, and probably plenty more to come from Liverpool too. And plenty more to come from us as well. We'll be doing a preview show of that Leicester game that Paul mentions. Look out for that on the video channel. Click subscribe as well, please, because we know loads of you are watching and are not clicking subscribe. And I was saying the other day on one of the videos, we've got to all justify it to each other. So I've got to go back upstairs in a minute and everyone's got to go, how's this going? And I'm like, well, the subscriber numbers are going up, aren't they? So it must be doing something right. So give that a click. Tell your mates, comments, keep doing all that. We take on board all your feedback. Thanks to the boys. That has been the second look.